Hello and welcome to the Leftovers Rewatch. I apologize for last week. It was completely my fault that we weren't here, but we're back tonight to recap episode 2, Penguin 1, US 0.
Us 0.
Us 0. I'm sorry. I just watched the episode too, and when I was saying it, I go, that doesn't make sense. US 0. I don't know why that's it. Anyway, how's it going, guys?
Excellent.
Good.
Doing great.
I've watched this episode twice in one episode of Perfect Stranger, so I'm ready to go.
Nice.
Oh wow.
You know, I when I watched this episode, and the acting is fantastic. That we were talking about how some of the best lines were in this episode. I mean, but you can see why people found it depressing. Am I right?
It's a bummer of an episode. I mean, there a couple here, like this one, and the next, we're episode 2 to 5 of
right.
The first season of Leftovers are downers. They're downers.
I mean, again, you can see why people said, "Okay, I can't do this anymore." I
mean, yeah, totally.
Yeah, if you're not in the right, mental state, it's going to be hard to get through to just be like, if it's a chore for you, then it may not be the right time. But
right.
When you really understand it.
Luckily for those people, they have us to help them get through this journey.
Right.
Exactly. It's definitely a show. If you stick with it, you get rewarded.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, it's just because season 2 and 3 are just fantastic. Not taking. I know some people get upset when I say that. Not taking anything from season 1 away from season 1, but it is kind of like today. I was watching an episode, going, "Oh my god, okay, I forgot about this. Oh my god, I forgot about this." It's just like.
Just imagine if the guy you watch him with cancels and you have to watch it again. Just imagine if that happens.
Man, that's terrible. Because I only had to watch it once.
Right. Yeah. That's why I had to cleanse it with an episode of Perfect Stranger.
All I did last weekend was sleep, so I didn't watch anything. I just slept.
No Snyder cut for you? No 4 hours?
Nope. Did not. Didn't even. I said I'm not going to even attempt that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have. I guess it's the feds. It's not the FBI, but was it National Security talking
Homeland
about
Security? Basically.
It's the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Cults.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm serious. That's what we changed the name to.
Yeah, and you had the magic effing hugs line, which I thought was great because Wayne gives great hugs. I mean, he's a hugger.
If you're.
Yes. And the cult leader,
And,
his resume has lots of things on it.
I guess I don't know if they did it on purpose. They really put in some Juris My Diction bullcrap kind of cop movie talking here, and it's really it was really kind of to me, it felt like they were doing that on purpose very much.
I have some thoughts on this, what is almost like a throwaway scene before the actual invasion of the ranch starts, which I'll leave for the end section of our recap, because if we dissect that, there's actually some interesting things in that scene.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's the next thing is they go in there and they just come in guns a-blazing.
Yeah, now that you mention it, it may have been better edited, altogether, kind of like back and forth where you would see you said the Department of whatever in cults, you see those people talking and then it flashes to the raid and then it goes back to them talking and then it continues with the raid and then you get to the build up in that scene with those people saying he has a thing for underage girls and then, you kind of the climax of the raid and involves her, so that would be kind of a good parallel that may have made it a bit easier.
If you're going there to save underage girls, which I have no problem with, why are you shooting them?
Mm-hmm.
Just
just
throwing it out there.
A lot of things we'll say for the section at the end with the spoiler talk because there's a lot there.
Yeah.
Well, then we have, Tommy kills a dude because Christine is, about ready, and he just shoots him and says, "Sorry, but she's important."
Yeah.
As the guy's got blood coming.
Yeah. My cult leader says this she's important.
So I had to kill you. Then they go they go to some underground thing where they hide out. But I just a word of advice: if you're running from people, you don't want to be screaming and bringing it, because Christine kept going as they were running away. You don't want to bring any attention to yourself. Just run and get away.
By the way, one of my favorite things about all the Jack podcasts is when he talks about these tactics. Of course, where the most famous one is the water bottle, but from Lost.
Yes.
Going back to Leftovers.
Well,
right.
but it's but if you got people running around trying to kill you, you want to bring attention to yourself, right?
Well, let's say they made a plan, which they didn't. Okay, let's say they did. What is it? Mike Tyson says, "Everybody has a plan until they're punched in the face."
Yes,
right.
that's true.
So, I mean,
and he would know,
right?
So, coming off of episode 1, people are probably thinking, who's Holy Wayne? What's going on? And so I feel like that scene with the cops or whoever, they kind of basically tell the audience exactly who Wayne is.
right?
He has a thing for underage Asian women, and he's also, he lost a son on departure day, and that's very important because I was like, okay, so that explains, that.
Who read the book?
So,
Anybody read the book?
I've read a summary of it.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, the Wayne is in the book. The book is basically the first season, and a lot of things are really different. But I mean, that, kind of the Wayne stuff kind of tracks with the book too. So,
Right. Yeah, it was a bloody scene, and they weren't armed. I mean, there are armed guards there, right? But the people they were shooting were just running because they had no idea what was going on.
Rod, yeah.
Well, I mean, the whole thing obviously is reminiscent of Branch Davidians, right?
Right.
But I guess we'll get into that later. But then our next scene, I actually like the transition from that whole panic to the next scene where we're not sure if it's real or a dream.
Well, where Amy wakes up Kevin.
well, yeah, but I think we can't go past the fact that it's the first time we see the credits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Credits.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Credits not in the pilot, and it's just one of the best opening montage scenes. And, I'm for it. So I just it's beautiful. There's something new to catch in it every time. The music is great. A lot of the Christian thing that they're calling it. What do they call it? The Rapture. A lot of Rapture imagery going on.
Yeah. It's also a lot of doom and gloom, which is a lot of what some people complain about in season 1.
Right.
But
Well,
to be fair, the show.
To be fair, it's a gloomy subject.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I couldn't imagine if it actually happened. I couldn't imagine being Nora. I couldn't imagine being the Pattersons who had to answer Nora's questions. I couldn't imagine having to go through that. But anyway, Amy wakes up Kevin, and he's like, "You can't be here. You can't be here, Amy. You can't be here.
You're uber hot and young. You can't be here."
Right. You're under. I'm not Wayne. You can't be here.
Yeah.
But he wakes up, and he doesn't wake up. He goes with her, and we see Dog Killer, and he shoots. Now, who did he?
I'm already so annoyed.
What are you annoyed at?
I'm just of Dog Killer. I'm just. I'm so over him just already right off the bat.
Was that Nora for a second? I thought it was Nora, but he hasn't really taken notice of her yet until the end of this episode. So,
yeah, I wasn't sure who it didn't look like Nora to me, but
it looked kind of like Lori's hair.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
The back of Lori's head, I thought, with her hair.
That would make more sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and that would explain why Kevin was there going,
Right.
I think
"Thank you, Lori."
Yeah, I think these first a couple things in this first half of the first season are really uneven, and like Kevin's dreams in this area are one of them.
Well, he dreams that he's on fire, right? And then he goes, and then what's happened? His next door neighbor Paul is burning down his fence.
Yeah. And
Because he didn't want to see someone else wearing his brother's clothes.
Right.
And they really
Right.
are attacking it from all sorts of angles I would never think about. I would never think
Mhm.
about that guy thinking about the fact that if he gives it to Goodwill, he would have to see it in town later.
Yeah, and again, we just talked about how it's such a devastating thing they've all gone through.
And this is like 3 years later, so they're still dealing with it.
Right. Because I think we talked about it last week. There's no answers. It just happened. You have to accept it.
And if you think stepping on Legos hurts, step on some adventures.
Yeah.
Gross.
Was that Ethan? Was that in the book?
I don't remember.
I mean, that was like, for whatever reason, when in this rewatch, like that really jumped out at me. The whole notion of stepping on someone's dentures. I don't know, like it was one of those things where it's like I'd love to hear like who put that detail in there, because like I said, like it's bothering me just even thinking about it right now.
Because I don't even think if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I read the book. It's like I don't even think the book goes that
Right.
dark, deep, detailed.
Well, what has more germs on it, dentures or a Lego? Because I can tell you, my grandkids when they were sick, they were handling the Legos. I cleaned them best I could, but
that's
so
my Rona Lego set has yet to be cleaned.
Okay, there you go.
And then doesn't Kevin say who wants waffles or something like
He
that?
does say that.
And it's kind of like that encapsulates a lot of the first season in the sense that you have a dream sequence, then someone in the community doing something weird, and then somebody saying something that is like darkly humorous.
Yes.
And that's kind of like what you're in for season one.
And we got Kevin's. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, Kevin's talking to his shrink, and he just won't. They're all, and then later on, they're all telling him, just tell him what he wants to hear. But Kevin's not going to lie.
Well, this is the equivalent of what Caleb was talking about. This is the info dump. This is the big catch up from episode 1 to episode 2. He tells the shrink exactly what he says or thinks he saw happen, right? Like, no, it was the dogs that attacked the deer, and then we start because everybody knows that Kevin was shooting the dogs. Like, word's gotten around town.
Right. It's a small town.
Small town. But yeah, I noticed that at the therapy session that this was just basically huge catch up from episode 1 for people.
And the therapist doesn't believe Kevin at all.
Nobody does.
Well, should the therapist be judging, or should the therapist be listening and trying to help the situation?
I mean, he should be helping, but he's the therapist. He's the official therapist of the police department.
Right.
You know.
I also like reading between the lines. You got to imagine that like Kevin isn't the only one who's kind of going nuts.
Right.
So he's dealing like with a higher set of demands. So you could see he doesn't seem like that compassionate.
Did the therapist have to deal with the dad?
I hope so.
But it's also, biggest thing I want to point out here is this penguin is the symbol for aggression for kids. So
yeah. Anyway.
By the way,
Caleb,
Ethan, when they pointed to the penguin, I just imagined your son like just lariating that thing, pile driving it for fun.
Well, he hasn't watched The Leftovers yet, Eckhart. I don't know what kind of parenting you're doing over there, but over here, we just let him watch the Snyder Cut. We don't let him watch The Leftovers. Rose, right? It is a conflict of interest. We had to deal with the father.
Yes. Caleb, you were going to say something?
Is it the police department's therapist? Do we know that?
It's
I'm
a court order
assuming it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or-
because
or
because he's got, before he's cleared or whatever, he has to be
Okay.
cleared by
Okay.
the therapist.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was kind of odd that the therapist kind of didn't seem to care that much. He even misnames Lori, or
You call Lauren or
Yeah.
Yeah, he called her by the wrong name.
so that's also kind of interesting that they added that.
Because Kevin goes, Lori and Dog Killer. Well, he doesn't call him Dog Killer, but he says, I didn't say his name. Why? Because I don't know his name.
Yeah.
He's like, the total truck. And so I can see where you'd be like, okay, yeah, even your people working under you don't believe you.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
That's the recurring theme with Dennis, right?
Right.
For the whole episode.
Yeah. Whatever you want, Chief. I'll lie for you. Whatever you want, Chief. You have Meg and Lori go into the woods. Lori has an axe. And I remember the first time watching this going, can't be killing off a major star this quick, could they?
with a dull axe, that would take a while. That's a lot of chopping.
It'll be painful.
Yeah. Pretty dull axe.
But Meg needs to cut down a tree. And she's not in for it. I mean, she says, you guys are a cult. And Amy says, not a cult. Would you classify the ARs as the
Virginia
GRs?
Slims.
The Virginia Slims, yes, I forgot about that. Would you classify them as a cult?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like right around this time, Gladys is, I don't know if we know that's her name yet, but the blonde with the glasses, she gets called Mooney when someone
Yes.
puts some blood on her. So there's lots of, and along with Wayne at the beginning, there's lots of cult talk here. And
Right.
of course, anyone that's in a cult says it's not a cult.
Right. But you got hit by a slushy, right? Was that a... Yeah. Nothing worse than getting hit by a red slushy because it's just going to stain your clothes.
Especially when they're white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we see Matt again. We see Matt, but we don't know, at this point, we don't know much about him. He's going to be a big star. He's going to be a major character. He gives Amy and Jill a flyer, and then they see Nora in the coffee shop.
I love how Amy was like, "You're doing really important work."
You're doing really important work. And then points out the big thing we're all thinking is, why isn't he doing it on the internet, which would affect more people?
Right.
Yes.
About the internet. And the interesting thing is, people were advertised for this show, so you knew at some point they were going to be a big deal. You don't get the guy who played Doctor Who just to be someone in the corner. I guess you only do that to someone if they were on the West Wing on this show.
Yeah, that's true.
Donna!
But Ethan, you bring up an interesting point because you kind of see how the world is written at this point in time. The story is told in a world where there really is no social media.
Right.
Yep.
We'll see if that holds for the rest of the show.
Yeah, I think I even at one point wrote down, everybody, Amy and Jill talk smack, and kind of all forms of decency is kind of thrown out the window. And it's not like, I guess in a derogatory way, it's just sort of like the new normal. And to viewers, it seems indecent, but to them, it just seems like in their world currently, that would be, anybody could have said that.
Well,
cussing is just not even a big deal.
Right.
That's people have way more things that they're concerned about now,
Is it their world, or is that how teenagers talk?
Both.
In general?
I would think that this is teenagers plus, because the whole world has gone down a bit. So you have your regular look at us old men talking about their teenagers and their bad attitudes and get off my lawn. But but I think it's that, plus, like, teenage parties will have sex and drugs, but will they also have, choking out, spin the bottle or spin the phone? I think it's
Not in my day, because the phone was connected to a cord, so when you spun it, it's kind of flipped around.
Yeah,
it's sort of like all rules, are thrown out the window. And I mean, if you're a kid when this happens, 12, 13, and now you're 16, I mean, your world is rocked.
Right.
So you're going to grow up, and in 3 years, whatever age you're at, 18 or whatever, wherever they're at now, it just seems like it would be totally different.
And we know Jill's world's been uprooted because of her mom, and of course everything that happens that has happened. And we don't know Amy's issues yet, right? At this point, we don't know why she's always at the Garvey's house and all that stuff.
Right.
But I did like that Nora knocks the coffee pot, the coffee cup off the table, and the guy comes from, and he goes, "Oh, it's you."
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you can't say anything to her because she lost her whole family. So,
yeah.
and that to me was pretty believable, because that's probably what would really happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates that weird dynamic because, the girls are speculating if he saw the gun in the purse, right?
Right.
Right.
And it fuels the intrigue.
Right. But it wasn't the gun. It was the fact that, he recognized who it was and said, okay, yeah, I'm not going to be the one that's screaming at the woman that lost all her, her husband and 2 kids.
But
then we also learn later that because of the role that she has in the federal government, she's probably also someone very important in that area.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Like that gatekeeper. So there's like a lot of different layers just from that one scene.
But the biggest takeaway from that scene, I think, is that she did it on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, she did.
Yeah. So just like a cat, just like.
So why do
I'm
we
sorry.
think she did that?
Huh?
Why do we think she did that?
To feel something.
She likes it. She needs some form of attention.
Yeah.
That's
I think
our
she just needs
first
to feel.
instinct.
She likes her little. She likes her a little bit of notoriety that goes along with the sympathy that she gets from the thing that's happened. As perverse as it might be, it does in fact, she derives a little bit of.
Well, I think it too. I think it's just it gives her, because nobody has talked. It doesn't seem like anybody talks to her.
Would you say that she's inadvertently making others continue to remember what happened?
Ooh. To her, I don't think she cares about everyone else.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's not anything calculated on her part. I'm just saying inadvertently.
Sure.
That's a good point. I like that.
I would say those GRs have a point. Some of them.
We see Nora and Matt. They hug, right? And we don't know what the deal is there. But
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
they hug, but because Jill and Amy were like, "Oh yeah, he's good," and when they hug, they're like, "Wait, what?" And then the twins just happen to be everywhere.
The twins are cool.
Anytime
They're cool.
we need the plot to continue, that they're the twins. They're the twins. They just happen to have their Prius there and ready to rock and roll. And sure, when Jill and Amy said, "Hey, can we take your car?" Sure, go ahead. Right?
They're men. Why would they have hand cream?
Yeah. Well, I bet you they probably have hand cream.
Yeah.
Just saying. Just throwing it out there. But they're following Nora.
Yep.
Mhm.
And would you follow someone that has a gun like that, and she has a gun? Would you?
No.
I mean, if you're a teenager in that world and you need that extra, if you're the if you're the kids from My So-Called Life, Raylene or whatever, I would, in that situation, I'd follow them.
Okay.
What else you can do? Go to school? That's dumb.
Yeah, I would probably follow him before I went to school.
Yeah.
I'd follow Nora if I went to school.
But it's like, let's follow the creepy lady and see what is going on with her.
Yeah, I guess I would.
She's got a gun. There's a morbid curiosity there that I think a teenager in that situation would do.
All right, you sold me. I would probably been in the car doing the same thing.
Oh, you just want to show up. All right.
And it also highlights this kind of like, for lack of a better term, this YOLO type of mentality, in the sense that like one of them is like, we're going to miss class, and they're like, who cares, right? This is more interesting.
And the guys are just following.
You're never going to get laid or something like that, right?
Well, yeah, the twins are just following their,
Yes.
Yes, the twins are just following their own twins. So
Well, later, the twins tell. I was trying to find the part where they basically tell Jill, they're like, Amy's the bad influence.
yeah,
But Jill was the one that told Amy to go get maybe there's hand cream in Nora's car. So I was like,
what? She starts honking the horn.
Yeah, and then Jill did that, and I'm like, I mean, it can be said that Amy is a bad influence, but like Jill definitely is too.
Well, probably I think Jill's a little nicer to the twins than Amy is.
Yeah, Amy's more blunt, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
We go back to Meg and Lori, and she's really struggling to chop down that tree. And she's got she's barely knocked some of the bark off.
Mm-hmm. And now is this where Meg has her little outburst?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
She said, "Is this supposed to symbolize my old life? This tree that I'm cutting down?" And Lori's like, "Girl."
And she wouldn't.
Not a cult. Not a cult. Yeah.
Not a cult.
Well, she wouldn't even give her a cigarette because Meg wanted a cigarette.
And also,
Meg was like, "It's a pretty shitty cult. If you won't just let me join it."
And then Meg says, "This is effing stupid," which is kind of the motto of the show, right? Because how many times are we going to hear, Kevin say that kind of in the future about things? But I also want to point out, like, so many people have an emotional rage breakdown, right? In this episode,
Right.
almost every main character we see has a big rage breakdown, which is aggressive, which is symbolized by the penguin. Go on.
Penguins are scary. We got Tommy and Christine arrive at the gas station, and we see Peter. Was it Peter Berg?
Is it Peter Berg?
I thought it was Peter Berg that was
Dead?
the dead guy.
Oh, I don't know.
By the way, in the original podcast, Jay said that guy looked like a Christian Slater.
The
dead guy in the gas station.
Oh, really?
And this is pre Mr. Robot, so it was when Christian had fallen off the map.
I don't see Christian Slater. I don't see it.
I don't know either.
I'm pretty sure that was Peter Berg.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, I can't make movies. I can't write movies. I can't direct movies. So I don't want to talk. I hate talking smack about people that do, but I'm pretty happy that as far as the Peter Berg direction of this series, this is where it ends. You know what I mean? This is his last directed episode.
Yeah.
The pilot, he did the second one. And,
Friday Night Lights was pretty good.
I like Friday Night Lights. I like it. If you need to make a movie with Mark Wahlberg saving people from disaster, he's your man for sure. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's just,
Yeah, it says on IMDb that Peter Berg plays Pete.
In episode 2?
Yes.
Oh,
So
there you go.
it's Pete, yeah.
So
I'm never going to go back to find out.
good job, Jack.
Well, then we get because I want Tommy and his dad to. You want them to talk, and you want them to. Okay, what's going on here? Was it because of Lori? What happened with Tommy that he can't? So he calls his dad, but no, here comes a car driving up. So then he has to hang up on his dad, right? His dad. Well, dad never answered anyway. And who gets out of the car?
Some lady.
Well, some lady, but who gets out of the trunk?
Holy Wayne.
Who doesn't have a shirt?
Never. It's part of the cult leader outfit.
I guess.
Some
But then
cults don't have shoes. We'll find out.
Yeah. Sometimes they have purple shoes, right? Purple Converse. Haley, Wayne, Bob Comet, Colt. I'll talk to you guys after that. If you don't know any, they were from San Diego area. Was it Wayne Bob? What was the comet that they?
Hale Bob.
Hale Bob Comet. Yeah, and they ended up killing themselves. like 37.
Oh,
Yeah, I watched that
I
documentary.
watched
That
that
was
on HBO.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's have
Like,
cold
it was-
talk later afterwards.
Yeah.
Cold.
Anyway, let's see. Kevin calls back. Tommy doesn't answer. And then it was Dennis saying, well, why don't you just text him? Because my kid just like texts like crazy. That's the only way they answer, which is true. I've noticed with my kids.
Yeah, why talk to a person? That's dumb.
Yeah, it's so much easier.
I think it's back to, the departure happened and they need that. They need more of a physical, look at quarantine. People aren't just texting. Some are, but then you have people who primarily, if you want to talk to a family member or something, you're FaceTiming, you're making a phone call, it's not just a text to check in. And with Kevin and Tommy's experience, he's been on the other side of the country for a while now.
Right.
So,
And he's seen some stuff, and there's lots of like barriers going on right now, emotionally for everybody. So
Well, plus he's killed somebody recently.
yeah,
right, true.
And I've never killed anyone, but I can't imagine that's something that most people go and just kind of shrug it off.
Yeah, add that on top of everything else,
Right. And then we have Dennis's Chief is talking to Dennis, and Dennis doesn't believe the Chief. Just thinks he's crazy. And that's when Kevin and Dennis are searching for Meg. They go in there. Now, how come Mr. Jensen can speak?
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Like it was a bit like what?
this is a mid-level house. You said you.
I get it, but it's so he just can't get to the other side. I mean, he can't get to the other house.
I mean, I think we see a lot of Patty telling Lori to drop Meg if it's not working out.
Right.
I mean, like I think that there are people at this level, and some will get stuck at this at this level. You know what I mean? And there's a certain amount of commitment that they need to take on, and they're just not ready to do it. They still need smiley faced whipped cream on their.
Yeah, I don't like whipped cream, so I would have gone off on him.
Well, it's really interesting that earlier Kevin was like, "Do you want pancakes?" And so then we go to this halfway house, basically, and they're eating pancakes, and he even says, you can't have that in the big house. We know they're eating like Big Brother slop or whatever.
Yeah,
And so I just thought it was interesting because from a cult sense, are they trying to say that Kevin is kind of teetering on the edge? Because from his point of view, he's, especially with Meg's fiance, can't even understand why he would not want her back. You know what I mean? So in a way, he's wanting to remember. So
Right.
I just felt like everybody's at kind of a different level,
I mean, the thing that jumped out at me at that scene with Jensen too, and I obviously wouldn't have thought about this the first time, is that with the proliferation of cults, I mean, you could also have people who basically come in and try to take advantage of the cults.
Right.
Like, he's almost like he's conning them. He's just going there for the free food, right?
Well, but he was upset when he goes, laundry already?
Right.
Because it's 2 big bags of laundry. So he's obviously doing, is he working his, like with Meg's task was to chop down the tree. Is Jensen
almost feels like with Jensen, he wants all the benefits but not doing any of the work, right?
But he is doing work. He's cooking the breakfast. He's doing the laundry. Do we ever see him later on?
I don't think so. I don't remember.
All right. Because Kevin says your case has been closed. You're missing your family.
Knows where you are now.
Knows where you are and everything like that. He just kind of goes, and he didn't say anything. He just kind of, and he can speak. I don't know. It's just right, trying to figure out.
From a character standpoint, now he's at the point of, okay, I'm kind of past the point of no return. They know where I'm at. It's happened. So maybe he's about to change his tune, and that's why we don't see him anymore, because he's in the background following all the rules.
I just was like curious if that's just, if they have different, at what point do you just, okay, you can't come in the club, or you can't, if you can stay here, like you're saying, Eckhart, you can eat the free food and all that stuff, but you can't come to the other house. You just have to do the laundry and do, this is your penance, or whatever you want to call it. This is what you have to do.
And that's kind of a running theme throughout the episode in terms of how they decide who gets to move on, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Because maybe did they decide that he was not going to be able to move on? Because it almost looks like he has guilt when they say when Kevin says your case, because it's not a throwaway scene. It was meant for us to think about what he was, what was going on, and you could see his face. He just kind of hung his head, like, okay, yeah, I can't see my family anymore. Whereas, Lori and the other ones don't care.
But if they're in that house, they do care a little bit. Like we have Meg's struggle with like letting go of her.
Well, Meg struggles, but I'm saying the people that have crossed over to the other house don't seem to care about their family.
Well, Kevin just said your family now knows your whereabouts, so his family could show up tomorrow to try to get him back. We don't know.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a line in the episode that was, because what's the reason? What reason would they have to give us that line?
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just wasn't where, we need another 30 seconds of dialogue here.
Right.
Anyway,
no, sure.
Just things that bother me.
The whole thing in this whole episode, and what I want to talk about later with the ATFC and everything, it all goes to world building. Like, there's still so little. There's like a little bit. This episode's like, I would say 30% character development, but 70% world building.
Yeah,
right. And we're still doing that everywhere. So I think that's part of it.
Well, Meg tells Kevin she's here on her own free will and she doesn't need his help. And he takes a picture of her. He goes, okay. And then Patty's there. Because he does. Him and Patty do not get along.
Mm-mm.
They do not get along.
I thought it was really sad that Meg was like, when he said, I need to take a picture. Oh, I love your background. Think about when he said, can I get a picture? And Meg said, did I do something wrong?
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh, she's still at that kind of innocent stage of feeling everything out,
Right. Well, like she said, when she goes, I've been 2 weeks and I'm still not, you haven't moved me over, or I've been doing this for weeks, or what? I don't think she said 2 weeks, whatever she said. So she's getting frustrated with the whole,
And it's really, and it's something not to go into now, but it's something to take note in Meg too, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Patty tells Lori, well, she kicks Lori. Lori's sleeping, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or was Lori eating?
She was on the computer typing. And
she that's right.
The computer.
Yeah, and then she tells Lori, that Meg is going to leave, or she's going to leave. And so they go back and forth. Then we get to a scene. I thought it was a tough scene to watch because Nora's going to see Mr. and Mrs. Patterson. But then we flash away. We go back to the mayor talks with Kevin. And Kevin's bagel has departed. So,
and they did. I'm watching The Wire again. The little quote there.
Yeah,
I told you not to watch the effing Wire. It's got all this conspiracy stuff up on the board. So.
Well, she said crazy people don't shoot dogs.
Right, and she tells him, just tell him you were drunk. You won't do it again.
I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Crazy people. She said, stop shooting dogs. That's what crazy people do. I said it backwards.
But what I like, though, she does, because at this point, we don't know. She goes, I'm going to see him tonight. Do you want me to tell him anything? And tell him hi. And then at this point, we don't know who she's talking about.
Right.
I know at the time I didn't know what she was talking about.
And before the bagel goes missing, Kevin quotes the dog shooter and he says they're not our dogs anymore.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Which is another thing that kind of leads you to believing that maybe he is seeing this guy and he's the only one seeing this guy.
Right.
And just another on the side of aggression, and the penguin, because we all know the penguin is aggression, is she basically says, aren't things different now when you go see people because everyone knows you've been out shooting dogs?
Right.
Isn't
And
there
people like dogs. He goes, I like dogs.
Not our dogs anymore.
Yeah.
So,
but I do like when he's beating up the bagel machine or the bagel toasting thing, and the other woman cop's just like this going. And she's just looking at him. He's the chief of police, and she's looking at him like, I can't believe I'm working for this guy.
and who in their budget, in the police budget right now, has got a police budget for that kind of bagel machine for police?
That's pretty cool. I mean, I think that's like a restaurant type thing, or like a buffet type thing, right? Where you put your bagel in and.
But Ethan, it does tie into the post 9/11 era where there was so much money flowing for anything that was related to anti-terrorism on all levels. So I'm not surprised. Like they had a nice kitchen there for people that deal with cults, right?
Right.
When Kevin said that they're not our dogs anymore, and the mayor was like, what's that supposed to mean? I wrote down that basically all characters are on very different pages and wavelengths, as of course would be the case, because Kevin's over here thinking this. It's way more than a case of they're thinking this and they're thinking that. Like everybody's just expectations, reality is just out the window, wide open, and that's something as a viewer people need to be aware of. And like you said, this episode is all about world building. So that's perfect.
Then we go back to the Pattersons, and Nora's. She works for they give claims on the people that have departed, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
now,
so we have
been 3 years.
3 years. So we have a whole bureaucracy prop up. We have them change alcohol, tobacco, firearms to alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and cults.
Right.
And I don't know if they say it in this thing, but she works for the DSD.
I don't think they did because I honestly couldn't remember what I knew. I said insurance company.
The Department of Sudden Departure is what she works in. Departure benefits, which is a mild spoiler that won't really.
And I thought this was a tough scene. I thought it was well acted by the Pattersons and the whole group there, because she's asking questions about their son, and again, they're questions that are kind of personal, and they're questions that they're just like, I mean, at what point do you want the money? To you, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people in that situation would say, I don't even want the money. I just want my son back. I want my wife back.
Especially to ask questions that are so ridiculous for a person that had a mental disability of any kind. And you have to, they haven't gotten to that amendment yet in the bureaucracy of saying, well, if a person had a mental disability, these questions should be excluded.
Right. Modified. Yes, absolutely.
The scene is also fantastic in terms of, I don't know if they intended doing this, but this is what I took out of it. They're really showing that like so many of the questions seem random, and it's because what they're really doing is they're paying these people for data.
Right.
To use that data to try and come to some sort of scientific conclusion.
Right.
What might have, what all these people that departed had in common, right?
Right.
And so it's kind of like, all right, we're going to help you out, but you're going to have to sit through 150 questions.
Well, even Nora says, I know these questions are terrible, but I have to ask them in order to, and she even films, she records the session. I just thought that the actress playing Mrs. Patterson was fantastic. You could see that she was just hurt and devastated that her son had departed. I think that's where you get this episode was kind of depressing, because you see that and they're doing such a great job. And it's just a small part, but she's doing such a great job of showing how hurt she is. You're like going, God, I couldn't imagine that. You keep going back to your own, what if it happened? What if it did happen? How would you deal with it? I thought she was fantastic.
There was also a quick scene at the very beginning of that scene where it was a shot of all these jars filled with pennies,
Right.
which they'll kind of explain later with a quick scene. But I thought that was interesting that they would angle the camera through those to see Nora and, you know, the back of the heads.
And if
At
you're
the
watching
camp.
this for the first time, you don't notice that. You know what I mean? Like, you don't notice that long jar of pennies. Like, I didn't notice it for the first time I watched this ever.
Oh, well, yeah, maybe not on the first time. I
No.
don't know.
Yeah.
But this is where we talked about the scene earlier. Amy wants some hand cream, and then Jill says, "Go to, you know, I'm sure Nora has some hand cream." She goes and gets the hand cream. Oh, this is good stuff, and like this, and then she sees the jelly beans, which comes into play later on, and because you see, Nora has some CDs, but there's like children's CDs there, and
Nothing's been touched.
right, and so then Jill starts honking the horn, which freaks out the twins.
Yeah.
And Amy laughed about it, but I would have come back and been pissed. You know,
Yeah.
What are you doing? And then Nora stares down, and I think Jill kind of realized that maybe she crossed the line when she sees Nora's face. Did anyone else get that impression when they're driving away?
I didn't catch it as she thought she crossed the line. It seemed to me like this isn't over. Do you know what I mean? Like, they caught each other's eye. Like, this is a thing that they're setting up.
Okay, because it just looked to me
Yeah.
like Jill had some remorse. I mean, you're picking on a lady that lost her whole family. It's just
Yeah, I'm just like, why are you doing this to her? Like, I mean, even I get that you see a gun, and wouldn't most people carry a gun now? I mean, I'm sure, like,
at least protect
not
yourself from the
advocating
dogs.
for anything, but like, wouldn't after this disappearance happened, people would have flocked to arm themselves? So obviously,
Well, especially with
we
all these
know-
cults popping up and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like it may not be that out of the normal anymore. So like, why did they just hone in on her?
Right.
What was that? Maybe it was the mug thing that set off the whole thing. Did they see that? You
Yeah,
think?
they
saw
it,
that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big confluence of like this gun, them. They think that she's going to do something to the priest, but they end up hugging. It just became very intriguing to them very quickly.
Right. Okay.
Then I think we talked about the scene. Kevin talks with Meg's fiance and tells him Meg is with the GR, and he just goes off and says, I held my wedding off for 3 years. He goes, I'm done.
But what is his last name? Anyone remember?
I didn't write it down.
His last name is Finnerty.
Finnerty.
Kevin Finnerty is Tony Soprano's alter ego in season 6 when he gets shot, and they go into this alternate reality for 2 episodes.
Oh,
Tony Soprano's name is Kevin Finnerty.
I
That's
did not remember that.
Sopranos connection for the episode.
Ethan, you're supposed to leave that to the end of this episode.
No,
Yeah,
not
you-
the Sopranos connection. That's different.
You kind of spoiled
Sopranos
everyone. on
connection is
that.
different than spoilers.
Do we agree with the fiance at this point? It's like, I've been patient. I've been trying to be understanding. And
Something I have to say about that
her
is a spoiler.
her mom didn't depart. She died, right? She died before the departure.
Yeah, that's a huge spoiler.
They said it last week, didn't they?
Did they say it last week?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because
Yeah, so-
didn't maybe I was the one that spoiled it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
No,
Matt,
no, they said it on the.
pretty early on, Matt says that.
Oh, I think I said it later in the episode. Yeah, she her mother died the day before the departure.
I swear, I thought they said it on the show.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway.
if I spoiled
But
anyone, I apologize.
That's the reason why she's so messed up, kind of,
Yeah.
or why she postponed her wedding for 3 years. She can't deal. She can't get over it. She wants to remember. So, of course, when the guilty remnants start showing up at her door, she's going to go.
And
Right.
we've seen him with her in the past future. And so we kind of know he's been with her the whole time going through things. So I mean, it makes, it's kind of like a drug addict, at the point where they do so much that even their own family can't deal with them anymore. It's like
Right.
at what point can you throw your hands up and give up, and they're going to do what they're going to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like the contrast between he almost he kind of out Kevin Garvey here with the F bombs and the emotion, right? And it was just such a contrast to the scenes that we saw in the pilot, where he's like trying to show the positive of everything and
Right.
bring her along. So, but yeah, I kind of like the fact that he snapped.
Yeah.
Another character that snapped.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a trend. I like that Dennis calls Kevin, says, we found the truck. And so then when Kevin pulls up, it's at his house. And the keys are on the dash.
Yes.
And there's a dog in the back. Well, there's a bag and some blood. And he goes, and Dennis goes, well, it's a dog. Get that dog. And he's like, well, who brought the car here? He goes, I don't know, Chief. I don't know.
And more importantly, he Dennis says that they should just, say they found it a few blocks up from here. And and Kevin just like, why the fuck did you say that?
Yeah.
It's not my truck, Dennis.
I just want to point out everybody in this podcast except for me is cursed. Jack, that's all you should know.
Well, I
Did
was
I swear?
quoting, right?
Well, no, you didn't, but it's bound to happen.
All right, it's this side did. This side has been. This side's been PG. This side's R. Okay, or that's.
Fuck that! I want to be over there.
It is a line in the show, so I guess you can't.
Sorry.
But to me, but also as the audience, we're like going, okay, is Dog Killer real? We still don't know if he's real or not.
Straight.
So is this Kevin's truck? Did Kevin steal the truck? What's going? Did Kevin kill the dog and leave it in? Is Kevin losing it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We don't know.
Yes. There we go.
And is Dennis following him around, dude? Is Dennis checking him out?
Right.
Is checking up on him?
Yes. And that's it. Is it not just annoying though? Like the dog thing. Like just tell me,
Well, it's
I
the one
even
thing.
know.
Well, they said earlier, it's the one thing that Kevin can do that would make people mad is killing dogs.
Yeah.
And
it's like, God, does it have to be that?
It's also, but it also goes to the fact that Lindelof is trying to not do Lost, but make you think he's going to,
right,
because he answers that in this episode.
Right,
it's not lingering.
We got Wayne and Tommy talking. Was Wayne kissing Pete?
Which is never a good thing.
Was he kissing Pete at that point? Because he said he would never let him do that when he was alive. Then Wayne takes Tommy's shirt and starts talking. He goes, "Yeah, dude, you can have my shirt." Because he takes his shirt, and then he goes, and Tommy goes, "I'm just glad you and Christine are back together. All that stuff, it's cool." And he goes, "No, you're taking Christine. You have to protect her." And then he gives him this big wad of cash out of he's got all this money. Wayne's doing pretty well for himself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you skipped over the part where Wayne offers Tom the hug.
Yeah.
He refused.
And Tom said he's not ready for it. He said no.
And Wayne delivers the great line that Tom's the one MFer that he can't figure out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, even he kind of criticizes him for killing the guy. He goes, "You're a killer now. You."
And to me, those are important scenes because they're showing a certain level of ambiguity within Tommy, right?
Right.
Like a certain complexity that even separates him from the rest of all the people in Wayne's cult, right?
Tommy, if this were a cul-de-sac in a house, Tommy would probably be stuck doing the laundry. Because he's not willing to take the next step. He won't. He sees all the people get the hugs and follow him, but he won't do it. He likes to live in this, even though he sees people getting quote unquote better from the hugs, he refuses to want to take that step himself.
Yeah, I got a little ahead of myself there because we go back to Meg, and Meg asked Lori, "Can we just go one night without you taking my stuff? Just one night with that." But then she goes, because then Lori lets her know that Kevin is her husband. And she goes, "Why would you be here instead of with the hot cop?"
Yeah.
Which is
Which
really
we all ask, right?
which is really weird because she has to know that the looks at that point aren't meaning anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know the way.
Yeah, because her
looks.
husband's not unattractive.
He's not unattractive, and she decided to leave because something is broken with her. She
Well,
doesn't
maybe she was
wanna get
asking for. Maybe she was asking, because her husband is, her fiance is not a bad-looking guy. So maybe she was asking, "Well, why are you here? You have a hot guy at home. Why are you here?"
Also, yeah.
I could be. So maybe she was asking for herself.
Yep.
Right.
Totally.
Anyway, then we go back to Tommy and Wayne gives him the cash, and then he takes. You have a phone? Sure. He breaks his phone and throws it, and then gives him a smiley face one.
It's
Without the
kind of
charger.
ridiculous that Holy Wayne is like, you're a killer now, and all that, and it's like, yeah, and you're a cult leader, and all these deaths are on your hands because of
Right.
what you've done. This is your whole operation. Like, Tommy's just a cog in the wheel that just happened to be in that situation. But so yeah. Anyway, morality and your line of
Well,
good
I think
versus bad
like,
is.
I think it's true to life where people see themselves in a brighter light than they see others.
Mhm.
They kind of forget about the stuff that they've done and overlook it. Oh yeah, but you're a piece of crap. But if they looked in the mirror, they'd be like, okay, I'm a piece of crap too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of phony people in the world. Is what I'm trying to say.
I do like in the Wayne storyline how they have this role. I don't know if this is common in American cults, but this is like in all the Japanese cults, they had this where there's basically the spiritual leader, and then the equivalent of like the chief financial officer, chief operating officer, who's the woman in the suit, right? Who basically takes care of like all the operations of things.
Right.
She's
That's
just
true.
as integral to that little group as Wayne is.
We got to go, Wayne. And then
Anyone
Tommy gets.
see Wild Wild Country, Sheila? Anyway, we'll move on from that.
Well, we get Tommy and Christine get in the car, and the car won't start. Mm-hmm. And Tommy just, and we've all been there. Have we all been in a car where it won't start? And it's the most frustrating thing in the world, especially if you're in the middle of nowhere. And she's throwing a fit, and Christine goes, "It's okay."
He has a breakout. He has a Garvey rage of aggression.
He screams again.
Yeah, because it's 2 weeks in a row where at least he did it. He wasn't underwater.
I think there was a scene with Amy and Jill where Amy is eating the jelly beans that she got out of Nora's car, and she says, "Gosh, these are stale." And Jill says they were probably for her kids.
Right.
So that's another hint that, hey, she's kept everything in her car exactly how it was.
Well, that's what I'm saying too. Maybe Jill felt some remorse because she said it kind of like, "You're an idiot. You're an idiot for not, seeing why she probably had stale jelly beans in her car and stuff like that." If you have kids and you want to keep them quiet, you got to have something for them to snack on long trips.
I want to point
Even if
something
it's
out.
only like 5 minutes away.
I want to point something out from that Lori and Meg scene that we went back to, but I'm going to go back to it again. In that scene, Meg says, "I don't want to feel this way anymore."
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the second time she's uttered a motto of the show that people say over and over again.
Right.
At first she said, "This is effing stupid." And then she says, "I don't want to feel this way anymore," which is something that we'll hear a lot from people.
And then Dog Killer shows up at Kevin's house with a 6-pack of beer, and it's Budweiser, so I probably wouldn't let him in either.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, he's weird. I said,
you brought me Budweiser? Come on.
And he's got like dip, right? Because his lip looks all messed up.
Yeah. But then Megan and Jill see him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do they actually see Dog Killer, or is it somebody else?
That's what you said back then when it first aired as well.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Because you got to wonder, because we don't know who they're seeing somebody. Yeah. But do we know who they're seeing?
Well, it had traces of Fight Club on it, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah. Huge. Yep. No, I think they're trying to do that, but I think it's laying it out that this guy is real and he's real.
Okay, all right.
That's what I think.
I'll take your word for it. But he wants, you got 2 dozen dogs, another pack. They're living in a drain. It'll be easy killing. They'll plop them off one at a time. And Kevin's like, why do you need me? So again, it's Kevin.
He's like, I'm lonely, right?
Yeah, he says, yeah, because I'm lonely. But is Kevin lonely? But Kevin's lonely. So is it, again, like you said, Fight Club, Eckhart, is he just talking to himself?
It's almost like, where is his mind?
Yeah, it's just crazy. And he goes, take your truck. He goes, you can keep it. I'm done with it. So so would you keep the truck?
Well, I mean, he couldn't back it out. I mean, there was another car behind it right now. So
you wouldn't keep the truck? It was given to you. You give it back? It looked like a pretty nice truck.
I would leave it to prove to the therapist or whoever that he wasn't going crazy and that guy existed, because eventually he would come around and he could put up cameras and have him on tape and be like, here, he's real. I don't know.
Kevin doesn't, he's not thinking that far ahead, right?
No, certainly not.
Anyway, the mayor and Kevin's dad are watching Perfect Strangers.
We shouldn't talk about that anymore, just that they're watching Perfect Strangers. We should save all that for after the show.
Okay. If you want, I'll skip through that. Yeah. And then the mayor leaves, and then Kevin, I thought it was a nice talk between Kevin and his dad.
And it's the most tender talk that you kind of have on the show so far, and almost going forward.
Right.
It's really, really, the relationship between those two through the series is kind of amazing.
Yeah. And then Kevin's dad starts talking to someone who isn't there, and I'm pretty sure I probably said at the time, is he talking to the departed?
He thinks he is.
Or just Leonardo DiCaprio.
We have got to stop spoiling all these movies for people.
So, Ethan, do you remember if the scene was in the book?
No, I don't remember.
Okay. Because I thought, this is where, again, the brilliance of the show was you have, like you said, this great conversation of adult father and son. And the father just sounds really wise and practical. And then just mid-sentence, you could see that he's nuts.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, he goes, because Kevin goes, what am I supposed to do? Sit there and cry in my car? Because he's saying, his dad's saying, you need to show that you're human. You need to show. So, and he goes, you're crying in your car? Well, no. The whole thing. I thought it was, like I said, it was an excellent scene, because it was a dad telling his son, how's my house? Well, was it Paul burned down the fence? He goes, what an idiot, what a moron. And he goes, well, how's my job? Because Kevin took his job, and he goes, it's tough. He goes, it's a tough job.
And he's literally giving him super pragmatic advice. He says, why don't you tell that shrink she sent you that you were drunk and you're under a lot of stress, but you're very sorry. You realize now that it was wrong too. And then he immediately goes, will you please shut up?
Yeah.
And it's just as a viewer who's watching intently, you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And it was so natural.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so natural. Is that, wait, what is he doing? What?
And I remember at the time when I was watching it the first time, I wasn't familiar with the actor.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I wasn't familiar with the actor, but I was like,
you never saw Urban Cowboy?
Yeah, no, this was a big heavy hitter moment for me. This was wow, Scott Glenn's in this. That's crazy.
The right stuff.
Yeah, I hadn't seen any of that. But when it's the way that the guy was able to deliver the scene and just go so seamlessly, I was like, this old guy is amazing. And then, of course, later on, spoiler alert, we see that he's all buff and stuff like that. I was like, that's the guy I want to be when I grow up.
Well, he was known in Urban Cowboy. The biggest thing, my mom loved that movie growing up. I love that movie. And the biggest thing he did in that was how, they have that tequila where you eat the worm. There's actually a worm in it. They have the up close of him doing it in Urban Cowboy. He's a hard man. You know he's been there.
He's also in that Western with Kevin Costner and what's it?
With
Kevin
Denzel
Costner.
Silverado?
Silverado.
Okay.
Okay.
He's in a lot of movies.
He's in a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff. I mean, like you said, it was like, oh my God, they got him to do this. Then we go. Kevin goes back to find his bagels, to find out he's not crazy, because there is a bagel and he's got tools. He's taking it apart. Goes up there. They're kind of burnt. So obviously, no one else used the bagel machine, the bagel toaster, the rest of the day, right? Of course, does it still work? Because Kevin.
Stop looking at me, dude. I know I'm Jewish, but I don't know.
We also don't know how much time has transpired since the bagel got lost.
That was that day.
Right.
That was earlier that day, right?
Yeah. So because he even says to the mayor, "Did you see my bagel? Did you take my bagels? What?" She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway.
Well, I think, also we need to remember in the first episode where the deer was there in the yard and you thought it was like maybe a fake deer because it was just, being very, it wasn't moving at all.
Right.
So then he comes out and it's gone. Well, here you have the bagel and it's seemingly disappeared as well. So you have somebody who's like experienced all these people, disappearing, and now here's the bagel disappearing, and he's thinking that other things may be disappearing as well.
Right.
I think that not only he's also thinking like, what's these dreams about? I'm missing pieces of time. He's obviously going through something, but then on the side of this, he's also wondering, is this going to happen again? Right. Underneath that, there's the anxiety of, are things going to start going missing again? And I think that that's really kind of the root of the tree of Kevin.
That's really deep, and that just broke my brain. Thank you. No, I'm serious.
Oh.
I'm serious. I didn't think about it like that. I liked it. No, I like that.
I agree. It didn't break my brain, but it was great.
I have a very, I have a very, very
going for.
Very, very past drug adult brain. It's okay.
I mean,
it's weak.
And then Patty. This is where Patty kicks Lori right on she kicks her, wakes her up. I mean, I got to be honest with you. At some point, I just would have punched Patty. You're slamming my computer. You're being rude to me. You're kicking me when I'm sleeping. You kick me when I'm sleeping. I might have said something. But then says Meg is gone, and then where do we see Meg? She goes to chop down the tree, and she's doing it with gusto. She's doing it with a purpose.
She's enjoying it.
Standing next to a mountain, chopping it down with the edge of her hand.
All right. So, and that's how the episode ended. I thought it was a really good episode. Some really great acting. Just it's hard to watch. I mean, it's hard to get through it because it's not something that's going to leave you going, oh my God, I'm in such a great mood after watching this episode.
What I wrote at the end was Meg is found chopping down the tree. She is let go and using her aggression. And since the aggression equals the penguin and everyone else has had all their aggression tantrums out, the score is the penguin is 1, us 0.
There you go.
That's what I got from it.
That blew my mind. That just broke me. That broke my mind.
That was good.
Yeah, it was. I had to podcast about this episode 2 years ago and watch it 2 times this week to get that.
There you go. That's it. So you're complaining that you had to watch it twice. I helped you.
Well, it's such a weird title. There's one later too that I took a while to figure out.
Well, they do have. There's a lot of weird titles in this series that you got to go
crazy. Like Pilot. What's that about?
Well, I think is it Westworld that does the same thing where you're like going, what? Because sometimes the titles don't make any sense and you have to watch it and you go, I still don't get where the title is coming from. But anyway,
the end of 2022.
Is this where we get into our spoiler section?
Yes, this is Ethan's. What do we call it? The checklist.
Yeah. Do we have a drum roll for it? No, I don't have a drum roll.
Leftovers, spoilers. No, sorry. These are, since it became a thing, it was kind of stressful to do it. So I'll see what I have. I like to hear what Rose says. I didn't
I
mind
didn't mind the deep and difficult nature of season one. It fit with the tone of the show and seriousness of the subject. It did. I mean, like I said, but a lot of people
Yeah.
I know did stop watching because they couldn't deal with it. It was just too.
Well, and that's why it turns out to be my favorite show ever, because you have to go through this to get to the rewards that are
And,
coming.
I mean, I would even go as far as to say if there was only one season of Leftovers and you didn't get season 2 and season 3, it would be worth watching as well. I mean,
Right.
it's like from episode 2 onwards, I think I was totally hooked. And by the way, one of the interesting places to hear how people were really getting into the show was you hear it in the original podcast when people start leaving the messages, because you can see like the intensity is picking up every week.
Right.
That's for podcasts across the board, and that's how that's kind of how I feel about it too. I mean, because after this episode, each episode has some extra hook until you're full into something, and by the time you're done episode 6, I would say, of this season, I mean,
I think we talked about it last week. They did a great job of taking the story of how they disappeared and why, and to how they've reacted to it. I mean, they did it really quick. I mean, it was like this could have been dragged out for 2 or 3 seasons, whatever it was. But they just said, okay, I think they even we said last week, Lindelof said, we're not going to tell you.
And the thing, Jack, is like I don't think at any point when we were originally watching season 1 and on the podcast did anyone raise this issue that you've raised already last time in this episode, which is everyone's walking around with this sort of Damocles hanging over their head, wondering if they're going to depart.
Right.
Yeah, which goes back to the bagel thing. And I think first-time viewers like myself, back in the day, I honestly thought, did the deer just depart? Did the bagel depart? Are things slowly departing and people have just not caught on to it yet?
Right.
I mean, people are still thinking that,
But I think they're thinking that because it is such a, people that are watching this are people that watch Lost, right? And the mysteries are everywhere. When I did first, quote unquote, cover the show a year and a half ago or whatever it was, I did it with a 20-year-old kid from England who had never seen the show before. So I was trying to do it completely spoiler free. And I had to, I went along with some of the theories that other people had come up with for his sake, but then he started coming up with his own that no one ever talked about. And by now he was on, he started this iOS theory about like with the iPhone that Kevin was using and the different levels of iOS, upgrades that had come out and what it had to do with the departure. And I'm just like, well, this is the kind of show it is when first time you're watching it, and it comes from Lost. It was interesting to listen to, but after a while,
Did he watch Lost?
He did not. He got up to season 4, and then he went. He was a Mormon person, and he went on his mission.
Okay.
He's in Macedonia right now. So.
Okay.
All right, Ethan, give us some spoilers.
Okay, so Amy says that Nora probably holds a gun to her head at night, but actually we know that she is hiring prostitutes to shoot her with a Kevlar vest on.
Yes.
Is what she's doing, which we find out in episode 6.
Always 6.
Huh?
See,
and
that's very important, because earlier, what did we say? That Amy, it feels like all decency has gone out the window with the things they say and stuff like that, and her saying, well, she probably sleeps with it, and like you just said, Ethan, I mean, here she is hiring prostitutes to shoot her. So like, it's really not that far-fetched, and it's like the whole language of where they're at in this process 3 years later is so important.
I'm just for later. Remind me, is the prostitute that shoots her Stevie from Schitt's Creek? I'll have to look that up later.
That's funny.
That just punched me in the face.
No.
Are you sure?
I don't remember that prostitute being as sarcastic though.
No, I would have. No.
Okay.
All right, next spoiler.
We Kayla brought up the jar of pennies. We get to see that later when a deer is rampaging before the departure all over that house. The only thing they can do with their son to keep him calm while Kevin goes in to check the deer rampaging through their houses, counting pennies or putting the pennies in jars. I guess that was one of his activities. That's what the pennies are about. We all know the guy does exist. His name is Dean, the bald guy, and we know that at the beginning of season 3, they actually use him for a barometer about how well Kevin is doing at the beginning of season 3, and how crazier he gets, especially into the dog thing. He actually starts doing Fight Club type stuff with getting DNA dogs because dogs have infiltrated the government.
And he has the sandwich.
He has a sandwich.
That's right, yeah.
Dogs.
Actually, Ethan, we should also mention there at this point in time that there's a symmetry between those 2 episodes, because that's the next time we see Tommy shoot someone, right?
It's the next time we see Tommy shoot someone, and he shoots Dean the exact same way the dog in the pilot is shot, the first dog that Kevin sees, up close to the head out of nowhere. It's like the exact same
Back and to the left.
Back and to the left. Back and to the left. Let justice be done or the heavens fall. All right. We know from the episode Gladys, when the alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and cults calls Kevin, that one of the services they provide is just coming into a town and cleaning it out of the GR.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Like, they make it very clear. It's one of my favorite moments in the entire series, actually, is that phone call. So, in the beginning, they were just going to kill. They didn't really care.
Right.
Perfect strangers.
Well, I'll get there. Okay. Okay, so Wayne tells Tommy that the girl is everything. We know right now that he's telling a bunch of people the exact same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a couple, sets of Christine and Tommy running around.
That's what I'm saying. Tommy is just a small cog in a huge wheel. I mean, Holy Wayne is over all this bullcrap.
So this is like the first of like the longest joke in television dramatic history, this Perfect Strangers bit, right? So Kevin Sr. is watching Perfect Strangers, and he says to Kevin Jr., all 4 of these original cast members have departed. And Kevin is like, that's crazy. That's not possible. And we find out in season 2 that Mark Lynn-Baker has in fact faked his own departure.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And then in season 3, Mark Lynn-Baker comes in with a massive, towering, dramatic performance as himself.
I love that scene.
It's one of the best scenes ever, convincing Nora to go through the machine that we find out about later.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Right.
And it all gets introduced here, like right here. Just it all comes from them watching Perfect Strangers. I watched that episode today, the Bibi Bobka episode of that, where the thing.
What's is it Brandon? What's the guy's name?
Bronson Pinchot.
Bronson Pinchot.
Yeah, Tom
Don't
Cruise.
be ridiculous.
Tom Cruise told him, never do TV, do movies. He goes, if you need money, let me know. I will help you out because TV will ruin your career. I always remember Pinchot saying that about Tom Cruise.
Why didn't you tell his cousin Ethan from Lost?
Well, because but because they were in the movie Risky Business together.
Okay. Right
So I guess that's what it came. But I remember that for whatever reason, I remember that story every time I hear about him.
And he was also in Girls Cop, right?
Yeah.
Girls Cop.
Yes, he was. Yes.
And my last little thing, Ahmel Foley. And my last little thing is when he goes in to see his father, Senior says the prodigal son returns.
Right.
That's the name of the last episode of the season. And I think, I think for me that about does it for those things that I said.
All right, I got 2 things I want to unload. They're not spoilers, but they're bigger observations.
Yeah.
On Rewatch, the first scene I thought was so interesting because you can see that they're basically two bureaucrats just making decisions just almost randomly about what to do about Wayne, and that has basically an impact on the rest of the series. Because if they decide not to go after Wayne, then does Nora ever get the baby?
Oh yeah.
True.
And if Nora doesn't get the baby and doesn't lose the baby, does she then make those decisions in season 3? Right?
Right.
So to me, that was like I was watching that, I was like, oh, okay, so they didn't mean it at the time, but if we think about it in that context, like their entire conversation is so banal, right? And that was probably the purpose when they first wrote it, to show that like the people making decisions of bureaucracy, which literally have an impact of life and death over people, are just like so cynical about all of this, right?
Well, I'd like to counter that, not really counter that or whatever, but just to bounce off that with the fact that I'm going to lose my thought that I had. Just continue.
All right. So
I'll think of it.
The second thing that really like struck me now in the rewatch is the combined toaster scene, both the flip out and then when he goes and figures out. Because to me, in so many ways, and they obviously probably didn't think about this then, it reminded me, of course, of when Kevin goes through this whole period of not understanding what's going on with him, and then he explains later on that he has a heart condition, right? And to me, like the toaster was the exact same thing. Like he's shaking it there, he's getting frustrated, and nothing's coming out. And then later on, when he's in a different state of mind, he literally goes there with a bunch of tools, like carefully opens it up, and sees that it was just something got stuck. So for me, it was just like, this is like probably unintended, but this is a brilliant explanation of Kevin's entire plot arc.
I agree.
One thing that really struck me about the bagel scene at the end is it's them. One of the reasons that makes it uneven in these couple episodes for me is the fact that they're giving you the full music at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not hitting the way that it starts to when it's an episode. They slam you with the music and everything is firing on all cylinders, and you're, speaking personally, a gob of tears on the floor. You know what I mean? They were trying to do that here with the bagel machine. It didn't quite get there.
You can get another bagel. I mean, just
Ethan, maybe it was just dress rehearsal for that track.
Now I will go back to the first. Remember, I sent you guys a picture yesterday of this podcast I was listening to with Justin Theroux.
Yes.
By his cousin Louis Theroux, and I didn't was able to listen to the whole thing.
That's phenomenal.
It was good. And
I haven't listened yet.
He talked a little bit about The Leftovers and how 9/11 was Parada's inspiration, but also at the same time, Lindelof was going through his father passing away at a weird time. And I really noticed that for some reason when I was watching it today, when that cop at the very beginning was talking about his son was going to quit doing
that's right,
law school or something. And the throwaway line is, no one quits what they're good at.
Right.
And that kind of circled around with all the best cowboys have daddy issues kind of thing for me.
Wasn't it soccer?
Or soccer. He says he's going to quit soccer. No one quits what they're good at, which is such a dad thing to say.
Ethan, did you get to the point where Thoreau talks about his childhood?
I did a little bit, yeah.
Okay, so, and I think this is actually really important because, I mean, I didn't know this, but a lot of what Thoreau describes his own childhood is actually similar to one of my own sons, but he was probably diagnosed with ADD.
Hyperactivity back then, yeah.
Hyperactivity, and he's dyslexic.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that Thoreau also has like writing credits and directing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense that like this is a guy who from personal experience can play these really difficult roles.
Right.
And he kept talking, and what was amazing was Thoreau talking about his childhood and remembering like teachers getting mad at him because he couldn't sit down, or not remembering, like he would read a page and he wouldn't remember what he just read. And he's like, he was observing all the things that he's doing, and he just didn't understand what was going on. And of course, it goes to that great line at the end of season 2, where the neighbor says, "I don't understand," right? And he says, "I don't either," and it's okay, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, but when Justin Thoreau was describing what's it like to be a hyperactive kid, and you have a rock in your hand and you see a taxi, and before the thought of I wonder what would happen if finishes your brain, the rock is already
flying, right?
Already flying towards the window, and that sounds like exactly edited cutscenes from The Leftovers.
Exactly.
Eckhart, I remembered what it was. You're talking about if Nora didn't get the baby because of the chain of events that happened. It makes me wonder, and I would need the timeline, but does Lori join the guilty remnant and leave the family? Does that take place before Tommy tries to go back to school?
I have to check
because if it does, she technically is the cause of Nora getting the baby.
Okay. Okay,
I don't remember.
Because if she didn't leave the family, then Tommy wouldn't have spiraled in college, and then
I think you're right.
So I wasn't sure at the timeline, but I was going back. I wonder.
We'll have to put a pin on that. And
I think so much of it is unwritten. The fact that Tommy witnessed that suicide, like we talked about before, at school.
Yes, that was very important.
Ethan, I know in the book that gets emphasized a lot more, right? Like they talk about isn't it his roommate or something like that, right?
Yeah, something like it. But see, there's so many things that are so different from the book that Kevin's not even a police officer. He's a mayor.
Yeah.
So he's the mayor. No wonder he fights with her all the time.
Yeah,
but it's more like he's actually a wealthy entrepreneur, and he steps in as the mayor because he's trying to make sure the town doesn't fall apart, kind of like that.
Right. Yeah.
But I like Kevin Garvey as the police chief who gets
I do too.
Crazy more.
And I thought for a second, for some reason that when he said police chief shouldn't be crying in their car, sounds like something that they could have caught Senior doing first.
I think Kevin's already doing it.
Oh yeah, no, I think
I think he is too. That's why he said it.
Well,
yeah.
Well, because Kevin's dad said he goes, they just think I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. Which is
which is the same as not a cult, right?
Right, exactly.
Man, what a great episode of The Leftovers.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to talk about in this episode?
Oh, I will say one more thing from that interview, which again everyone should listen to because it is really funny.
I'll put a link in the for people listening. I'll put a link in the show notes.
But Justin Thoreau does basically say, "Look, this is a show that's more or less about everything." And that's kind of hard for, I think, a lot of people to get their arms around too. It's because they want it to be about one thing. But yeah, sure, it's mostly about the role of faith and, sudden departure and stuff like that. But it really is it's almost impossible to put this in a really tidy box, right?
Right. Did he talk about how we used to work out together?
He did mention something about his body double.
Yeah.
Living in, I think he said he lives in North Carolina.
Yeah.
But it made me really excited to see Mosquito Coast.
Yeah, me too.
I'm really excited to see that. That's what he's working on now.
Yeah.
And his uncle wrote the book, so.
Was that a TV show or a movie?
It's a TV show.
TV show.
It was a Harrison Ford movie in the late 90s, early 90s. Mosquito River Phoenix.
And Jack, spoiler alert, the theme of the show or movie is about a scientist who goes to Mexico and is slowly losing his mind.
Yeah.
Yes, that is me. Anyway. All right. I thought this was a great episode, guys.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Tells us, gives us so much to look forward to.
Yep.
And we'll be back next Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time.
Yep.
All right.
Cool.
Any parting shots? Anything else you want to talk about?
Do we want to? We said all we wanted to say about cults. I just saw a murder amongst Mormons. It was pretty interesting. Anyone see
I
that?
haven't seen it, but it's in our watch list.
Yeah, that's good.
I have not seen it. No.
Okay.
After I watch Leftovers, I need something cheery. I need something. So I
What,
might go
another
watch.
Folks
I might go
Movie
watch.
cheery?
I'm gonna do a Justified rewatch, so maybe I'll go watch Justified.
I'm watching Justified right now too. Hey, Caleb, I really think that's her from Schitt's Creek.
It's not. It's not.
Do you just know that for sure, or
Well, let's save it, and we'll tell everyone next week if it is or not.
we'll tell everyone at episode 6
All right.
because we're talking about something.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
We'll find
Great
out
job. Great show,
All right.
kids. 1 in a million.
then.
Bye, everybody, and thanks for everyone in the chat that joined us.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.